This is Andy Cotter with MMA.ca here in Moncton, New Brunswick with Matt MacGrath. Matt, congratulations. You're victorious tonight. Main event win over UFC veteran Mark Holst. How do you feel?
I feel fantastic. I feel like the game plan went perfectly according to my game plan, and I came away with a dominating performance.
Going into fights like this, it's you've heard the phrase "styles make fights." You take a look at what you expect of certain fighters before the fight happens. I know you've got an extensive judo background. You've also shown a willingness to stand up and punch in your last bunch of fights. He's known to be a very exceptional striker as well. So on the one hand, people say it's judo against kickboxing, but you don't necessarily keep yourself to a judo type of fighter. So going in tonight, nobody knew really what to expect. Was that a difficult game plan to figure out to use wrestling and a lot of positioning and posture to keep the win?
I think anybody that watches the fight game knew that Mark Holst brought extensive striking into this fight, and that was his game plan, was obviously to stand and strike with me. And he also works with Pat Cooligan, so we know he's a Hanzo Gracie purple belt, so he had good hips, but my game plan was certainly to close the distance and push the pace. I feel like I'm a bigger, stronger guy, and overwhelm him and just outwork him, and I felt like I did in all 3 rounds.
Yeah. Well, speaking of all 3 rounds, it was a unanimous decision. All 3 judges gave you 2 rounds to 1. You don't agree with that, him getting one of the rounds?
I think he probably got 30 seconds of one of the rounds, but I think I dominated all 3 rounds. I had at least 2 takedowns in every round, and I didn't agree with all those stand-ups, because when I was in his guard, I was landing shots and I was busy, not just for the sake of stand down, but doing damage. I felt like I was landing elbows, continuous, and I was controlling them, so I didn't really agree with the stand-ups, but that's okay. That's the way it goes.
So you're one of those guys, you're a tough guy, but because you're in the Maritimes, you're not as well known as you might be if you live somewhere else. You have made some excursions out west to Alberta and Ontario. You fought out there, had some wins, had some losses. I don't think your record truly reflects your ability, because you're a really tough guy, you're really skilled, and you surprise a lot of people, I think, when you fight them, because they think, who's this guy that who's this MacGrath guy who gave me such a hard time? Where can you see yourself going with the rest of your career? Where are you going to go? I know you have big aspirations still.
I'm definitely looking at making a run now to try and get a couple of fights in the UFC, and I think everything is coming together. Talking with my coach Paul Abel at Wolfram MMA, and I think everything's finally coming together. I think he said the other day I finally found my range with my striking. It might not have showed as much tonight against a seasoned Muay Thai striker, but I still landed some good overhand rights, and I really did find my range now. Everything's pulling together, and we're taking the right fights now. I took a lot of fights against big names on 2 days notice or 5 days notice or 10 days notice, and we're not going to do that anymore. We're going to take the right fights, and we're going to put full training camps in, and we're going to make good use of a few years I got left. I just turned 33, so I want to make use of the time away from my family. If I'm in the gym training, then I'm training to win.
So anytime you can notch a win over a UFC veteran or UFC caliber fighter, it's an excellent thing, of course. Mark had his run in the UFC. You beat him tonight. So what's next for you? Any plans, or do you know when you're fighting next?
We're still looking at fighting Richard with Elite One here late in April or early in May. Nothing definitive yet, but that fight's still going to happen. And I've been actually talking to Peter Martell about a possible fight in March. So we're just going to I didn't commit to anything, but my wife's having another baby in June 5th, so I definitely want to get another fight or 2 in before the baby comes in June.
Okay, Matt, you're a great guy. It's nice to see a good win under your belt today. Congratulations. Is there anybody you'd like to thank?
I'd like to thank my wife, and I like to thank my wife Melanie, and I'd like to thank my whole team, Wolfram MMA and Coach Paul Abel.
Great. Okay, thanks, Matt. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
This is Andy Cotter with MMA.ca in Moncton, New Brunswick with Matt MacGrath.